Hello, everybody. Long time no see. I hope you're all doing fantastic. I hope you all had a lovely week last week. We had a busy week. Data. Welcome. How is you doing? Hope you're all doing good today. As we all know, we is back with the whale story. Hopefully the music isn't too loud. If it is, let me know. Although, according to my audio mixer, it does look like it's as loud as that. I'm gonna turn it down some more. Like that. That kit work then? Yeah. No, I won't show it, but I have a little bald spot right there, which is why I'm wearing this. So yeah, I went to the skin specialist, and yeah, she gave me antibiotics. I think I just told this story, but in case I haven't, I got antibiotics, some wound spray and ointment, and a whole lot of gauze, and I was wearing that head sock, if you guys can remember. And it's now completely healed. Let's say 99.9%. Still got a little bit of something going on, but it's nothing. So yeah, doing good. You can see the little bald spot there if you look closely. Because it's bald, I tell you. It feels so weird when I touch it. But yeah, there we go. Right. So, we are just over the halfway mark. Let's see if I can push it to close to the end this week. So I'll be back. Because my internet dropped. Thanks for letting me know there. Oh, for sure. Because I don't always notice the little indicator down at the bottom. Am I back? Oh, you back. Obi. You're going bald anyway. Feels so weird when there's like no hair on a patch where you're used to having hair. So, but anyway, as I was saying, when the internet decided to drop, we've got a little bit over halfway. So I'm hoping that I can push it to close to the end this week. So I'll be pushing hard this week to get through this book. And I'm gonna set up a challenge for myself. I'm gonna try to not complain too much. Feel free to bump me if I do. You better F5. What does F5 do again? But yeah, that is the plan. That is the plan. All right. Yeah. So, last 3 weeks, our internet has been anything but stable here in South Africa. Browser refresh. Okay. So in the past 3 weeks, we've not been having a lot of, very good, stable internet. So I'll be keeping an eye on that thing. Well, it's not that I'm being rude, I'm keeping an eye. We have had several service providers being attacked with a DDoS attack. For those of us who don't know what DDoS is, it's a denial of service. I don't remember what the first D stands for, but it's yes, I need to reduce the volume still of the better? Yeah. And buffering will happen, unfortunately. Don't know how long it's gonna be. Not doing anything. Right. Right, I'm using the wrong audio controls. Thank you for that data. There we go. That's the one. Thank you. Much better. Yeah, it's been a while. I'm a little bit rusty with all the things that I use. Thank you for your patience. No. I'll reduce the volume of the music a smidgen more. I'll make that 35%. And if it's still annoying, let me know and I'll drop it some more. Would you like to know more? About? Sure. I don't mind information. Bring it. And while you do that, I'm gonna do a quick prayer so we can get cracking. And I'll wait for this one. Get in between songs so I can pause that. And then we shall continue, I guess. There we go. It is now in between. Alrighty. Let us do a quick prayer while data tells me more things. Maybe? Thank you, Lord, for this beautiful day you bless us with. Thank you for family, friends, and community. Lord, I pray you bless everyone who joins me here today or who watches the VOD. Lord, I pray you bless those with healing who are currently struggling with their health. Lord, we pray that you bless them with your presence and strength, Lord. Give them endurance, Lord, and good health. And Lord, we thank you for all the rains we've been getting. We pray for protection over those who find themselves in areas where the rain might be a bit too much, in flood areas especially. Keep them safe. Those who find themselves swept away, Lord, I pray you keep them strong and protected so they may come home alive, Lord. Let them find their way home. Lord, we pray over countries that's currently struggling with turmoil and violence in their streets. We pray for protection over people. And we pray for peace over these countries, Lord, as we pray for peace over Israel. May your shining light of peace shine not only on us, but on all those countries and on everyone all over the world. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. Itchy nose. You might not get that reference because that movie was very gory. So it's from a movie that I might not have watched. Gotcha. Very, very possibly. Possible. Starship Troopers. I've heard of it. I don't think I've seen it. Yeah, no, I have not seen it. Just did a quick search. No, I have not seen it. Is it disgusting at times? Thanks for the heads up. Now I know to dodge that one. Right. Okay. Let us go over to the screen where everything happens. Okay, now. It just moves in. That's so cool. I forgot that it does that. Gets me every time. Right. Look. Now we can continue. Can you still hear the music at least? Because I'd like to have it as background. Well, it should. It should be heard. I mean, according to my mixer, it should be heard. Fairly easily. Alrighty. Then the trusty ruler is coming back in. I'm not gonna lie, I have kind of sort of forgot where we were. I think I'm not even gonna try and remember. I'm not gonna try. Not even a little bit. I'm just gonna read. I first want to figure out if this one is part of the story before we get too busy with it. Right. Does look like it. Right, so it looks like we've got 2 chapters so far. And then we've got a contrasted view. Alright, so we can skip that one. We can skip that one. So that's another one. Battering ram. We'll probably read that one. That's like part of the ship, right? We're gonna be skipping a lot of these today. Now we'll skip the battering ram, I think. Okay, cistern and buckets. We are getting the characters back in here. Alright, so we've got quite a few chapters that we will definitely be skipping. Okay. Yes, I think the Virgin is the name of another boat or ship. That's quite the chunk. That is including those that I'm gonna be skipping. Weird stuff, idea. Weird stuff. Weird stuff. Let us begin. Let me get my camera fixed up so that you guys can read along. All right. Yeah, I think we can do a little bit closer like that. No. Oh. There's 72. The monkey rope. In the tumultuous business of cutting in and attending to a whale, there is much running backwards and forwards among the crew. Now hands are wanted here, and then again hands are wanted there. There is no staying in any one place, for at one and the same time everything has to be done everywhere. It is much the same with him who endeavours the description of the sea. He must now retrace our way alone. It was mentioned that upon first breaking ground and the whale's back, the blubber hook was inserted into the original hole there cut by the spades of the mates. But how did so clumsy and weighty a mass as that same hook get fixed in that hole? It was inserted there by my particular friend, Queequeg, whose duty it was, as harpooner, to descend upon the monster's back for the special purpose referred to. But in very many cases, circumstances require that the harpooner shall remain on the whale till the whole flensing or stripping operation is concluded. The The whale, be it observed, lies almost entirely submerged, excepting the immediate parts operated upon. Excepting the immediate parts operated upon. So down there, some 10 feet below the level of the deck, the poor harpooner flounders about, half on the whale and half in the water, as the vast mass revolves like a treadmill beneath him. On the occasion in question, Queequeg figured in a Highland costume, a shirt and socks, in which, to my eyes at least, he appeared to uncommon advantage, and no one had a better chance to observe him, as will presently be seen. Being the savage bowsman, that is, the person who pulled the bow oar in his boat, the second one from forward, it was my cheerful duty to attend upon him while taking that hard-scrabble scramble upon the dead whale's back. You have seen Italian organ boys holding a dancing ape by a long cord. Just so, from the ship's steep side, did I hold Queequeg down there in the sea. By what is technically called, in the fishery, a monkey rope, attached to a strong strip of canvas belted around his waist. It was a humorously perilous business for both of us, for before we proceed further, it must be said that the monkey rope was fast on both ends, fast to Queequeg's broad canvas belt, and fast to my narrow leather one, so that for better or for worse, we two, for the time, were wedded, and should poor Queequeg sink to rise no more, then both usage and honor demanded that instead of cutting the cord, it should drag me down in his wake. Christopher, hello, welcome in! Yeah, the shoutouts are only done by moderators and the streamer. Also, Data is not a streamer. So, but welcome in. How are you, Christopher? I hope you're doing well. But man, that's a wild one. If he goes down, our guy goes with him. It's kind of scary. It's similar to when people go rock climbing and they have like a rope between them. You know? Kind of scary. Not gonna lie. You good? Awesome. Came home from Bible school about an hour ago. Yoo-hoo! Nice! I hope it was fun. Yes, I keep forgetting to fix my stream elements. Kinda make a quick note. Note made. Yeah, this actually, I believe more people should attend. Nice. Glad you enjoyed it. Awesome. Right, so. Drag me down in his wake. Terrifying stuff. So then, an elongated Siamese ligature united us. Queequeg was my own inseparable twin brother, nor could I in any way get rid of the dangerous liabilities which the hempen bond entailed. So strongly and metaphysically did I conceive of my situation then, that while earnestly watching his motions, I seemed distinctly to perceive that my own individuality was now merged in a joint stock company of two. That my free will had received a mortal wound, and that another's mistake or misfortune might plunge innocent me into unmerited disaster and death. That's quite an accurate description. Therefore, I saw that here was a sort of interregnum. That is a word that I don't know. Let us write that down, shall we? Interregnum. What the heck does that mean? Right. Interregnum. Therefore, I saw that here was a sort of interregnum in Providence, for its even-handed equity never could have sanctioned so gross an injustice. And yet, still further pondering, while I jerked him now and then from between the whale and the ship, which would threaten to jam him, still further pondering, I say, I saw that this situation of mine was the precise situation of every mortal that breathes. Only, in most cases, he, one way or another, has this Siamese connection with the plurality of other mortals. If your banker breaks, you snap. If your apothecary by mistake sends you poison in your pills, you die. True, you may say that, by exceeding caution, you may possibly escape these and the multitudinous other evil chances of life. But handle Queequeg's monkey rope heedfully as I would, sometimes he jerked it so that I came very near sliding overboard. Nor could I possibly forget that. Do what I would, I only had the management of one end of it. I have hinted that I would often jerk poor Queequeg from between the whale and the ship, where he would occasionally fall, from the incessant rolling and swaying of both. But this was not the only jamming jeopardy he was exposed to. Unappalled by the massacre made upon them during the night, the sharks now freshly and more keenly allured by the before-pent blood which began to flow from the carcass, the rabid creatures swarmed round it like bees in a beehive. And right in among those sharks was Queequeg, who often pushed them aside with his floundering feet, a thing altogether incredible, were it not that attracted by such prey as a dead whale, the otherwise miscellaneously carnivorous shark would seldom touch a man. Nevertheless, it may well be believed that since they have such a ravenous finger in the pie, it is deemed but wise to look sharp to them. Accordingly, besides the monkey rope, with which I now and then jerked the poor fellow from too close a vicinity to the maw of what seemed a peculiarly ferocious shark, he was provided with still another protection. Suspended over the side of one of the stages, Tashtigo and Dagu continually flourished over his head a couple of keen whale spades, wherewith they slaughtered as many sharks as they could reach. This procedure of theirs, to be sure, was very disinterested and benevolent of them. They meant Queequeg's best happiness, I admit, but in their hasty zeal to befriend him, and from the circumstance that both he and the sharks were at times half hidden by the blood-muddled water, these indiscreet spades of theirs would come nearer amputating a leg than a tail. But poor Queequeg, I suppose, straining and gasping there with that great iron hook, poor Queequeg, I suppose, only prayed to his Yojo and gave up his life into the hands of his gods. Queequeg's having it rough down there, that's for sure. Not only does he have to worry about getting pinned between the whale and the boat, he has to worry about getting munched on from the sharks and amputated by his shipmates. I don't want that job, ever. Well, well, my dear comrade and twin brother, thought I, as I drew in and then slacked off the rope to every swell of the sea. What matters it after all? Are you not the precious image of each and all of us men in this wailing world? That unsounded ocean you gasp in is life. Those sharks your foes. Those spades your friends. Depends on how you look at it. And what between sharks and spades? You are in a sad pickle and peril, poor lad. Indeed. But courage, there is good cheer in store for you, Queequeg. For now, as with blue lips and bloodshot eyes, the exhausted savage at last climbs up the chains, and stands all dripping and involuntarily trembling over the side. The steward advances, and with a benevolent, consolatory glance, hands him, what? Some hot cognac? No. Hands him, ye gods, hands him a cup of tepid ginger and water. So he doesn't even get a stiff drink as a reward, he gets from a ginger tea. Poor Queequeg, oh my word, poor guy, he deserves more than that. Dude's out there risking his life and they just give him ginger water. Ginger? Do I smell ginger? Suspiciously asked Stubb, coming near. Yes, this must be ginger. Peering into the as yet untasted cup. Then, standing as if incredulous for a while, he calmly walked towards the astonished steward, slowly saying, Ginger? Ginger? And will you have the goodness to tell me, Mr. Doughboy, where lies the virtue of ginger? Ginger? Is ginger the sort of fuel you use, Doughboy, to kindle a fire in this shivering cannibal? Ginger? What the devil is ginger? Sea coal? Firewood? Lucifer matches? Tinder? Gunpowder? What the devil is ginger, I say? That you offer this cup to our poor Queequeg here. The boy's getting an earful. There is some sneaking temperance society movement about this business, he suddenly added, now approaching Serbuck, who had just come from forward. Will you look at that cannakin, sir? Smell of it, if you please. Then, watching the mate's countenance, he added, The steward, Mr. Starbuck, had the face to offer that Palomo and Yallop to Queequeg. There, this instant off the whale. Is the steward an apothecary, sir? And may I ask whether this is the sort of bitters by which he blows back the life into a half-drowned man? That's so funny. I trust not, said Starbuck. It is poor stuff enough. Aye, aye, steward, cried Stubb. We'll teach you to drug a harpooner. None of your apothecary's medicine here. You want to poison us, do ye? You have got out insurances on our lives and want to murder us all and pocket the proceeds, do ye? It was not me, cried Doughboy. It was Aunt Charity that brought the ginger on board and bade me to never give the harpooneers any spirits, but only this ginger jub, so she called it. Ginger jub? You gingerly rascal! Take that and run along with ye to the lockers and get something better. I hope I do no wrong, Mr. Starbuck. It is the captain's orders. Grog for the harpooner on a whale. Enough, replied Starbuck. Only don't hit him again. But, oh, I never hurt when I hit, except when I hit a whale or something of that sort. And this fellow's a weasel. A weasel. What were you about saying, sir? Only this. Go down with him, and get what thou wantest thyself. When Stubb reappeared, he came with a dark flask in one hand, and a sort of tea caddy in the other. The first contained strong spirits, and was handed to Queequeg. The second was Aunt Charity's gift, and that was freely given to the waves. Here you go. That was a fun chapter. I'm not gonna lie, that one was really funny. Alright, let me catch up with chat here. Remember the opening scene in one of the older Trek movies where Kirk was climbing a mountain and Spock popped up in rocket boots? And Kirk lost his footing and Spock had to grab him? Yeah, that was a good one. Can't remember which movie that was. He's not having a well of a time indeed. Mika, hello, welcome in, oh my goodness. You love a good book? Yeah, there's gonna be a number of chapters skipped in this one. I already have them lined up to be skipped. Because, yeah. I like that emote of the cat dance. How are you, Ramikai? Welcome in. Thank you for the shouty data. Hope your day has been well, Rami. Final Frontier? Yippee. Yippee indeed. Right. Whew. Right, I think I've got my breath back after laughing so much. I mean, the guy wants to give him a ginger tea. Yeah, no, that's you don't give such things to the guy on the whale. It's been a long time. Yeah. I think I may have seen that, like on a clip or something, because I'm not sure if I saw the Final Frontier. Or maybe I have, and I just cannot remember. Star Trek 5. No, I don't think I've seen that one. No, I've not seen that one. Okay, chapter 73. Stubborn Flask. Kill a right whale, and then have a talk over him. Yeah, I have not seen that one yet, Beta. I still need to see that one. I think I've probably only seen like 2, maybe 3 of the original movies. And I have them in my collection. Alrighty. It must be borne in mind that all this time we have the sperm whale's prodigious head hanging to the Pequod's side. But we must let it continue hanging there a while, till we can get a chance to attend to it. For the present other matters press, and the best we can do now for the head is to pray heaven the tackles may hold. Now, during the past night and forenoon, the Pequod had gradually drifted into a sea, which, by its occasional patches of yellow brit, gave unusual tokens of the vicinity of right whales, a species of the leviathan that but few supposed to be at this particular time lurking anywhere near. And though all hands commonly disdained the capture of these inferior creatures, and though the Pequod was not commissioned to cruise for them at all, and though she had passed numbers of them near the Crozettes without lowering a boat, yet now a sperm whale had been brought alongside and beheaded. To the surprise of all, the announcement was made that a right whale should be captured that day, if opportunity offered. Nor was this long wanting. Whole spouts were seen to leeward, and 2 boats, Stubbs and Flasks, were detached in pursuit. Pulling further and further away, they at last became almost invisible to the men at the masthead, but suddenly in the distance they saw a great heap of tumultuous white water, and soon after news came from aloft that one or both the boats must be fast. An interval passed, and the boats were in plain sight, in the act of being dragged right towards the ship by the towing whale. So close did the monster come to the hull that at first it seemed as if he meant it malice. But suddenly going down in a maelstrom within 3 rods of planks, he wholly disappeared from view, as if diving under the keel. "Cut it! Cut it!" was the cry from the ship to the boats, which, for one instant, seemed on the point of being brought with a deadly dash against the vessel's side. But having plenty of line yet in the tubs, and the whale not sounding very rapidly, they paid out abundance of rope, and at the same time pulled with all their might, so as to get ahead of the ship. For a few minutes the struggle was intensely critical, for while they still slacked out the tightened line in one direction, and still plied their oars in another, the contending strain threatened to take them under. But it was only a few feet advance they sought to gain, and they stuck to it till they did gain it, when instantly a swift tremor was felt running like lightning along the keel, as the strained line, scraping beneath the ship, suddenly rose to view under her bows, snapping and quivering, and so flinging off its drippings, that the drops fell like bits of broken glass on the water, while the whale beyond also rose to sight, and once more the boats were free to fly. But the fagged whale abated his speed, and blindly altering his course, went around the stern of the ship, towing the two boats after him, so that they performed a complete circuit. Meantime, they hauled more and more on to their lines, till close flanking him on both sides. Stubb answered Flask with lance for lance, and thus round and round the Pequod the battle went, while the multitudes of sharks that had before swum around the sperm whale's body rushed to the fresh blood that was spilled, thirstily drinking at every new gash, as the eager Israelites did at the new bursting fountains that poured from the smitten rock. At last his spout grew thick, and with a frightful roll and vomit he turned upon his back a corpse. While the two headsmen were engaged in making fast cords to his flukes, and in other ways getting the mass in readiness for towing, some conversation ensued between them. "I wonder what the old man wants this lub of foul lard," said Stubb, not without some disgust at the thought of having to do with so ignoble a leviathan. The poor right whale, being looked down upon so badly. You want my old iTunes account? I have a few track movies stored there, but maybe Apple would be annoyed. I don't know. I think maybe I'll just move it up and down. I guess. Geotagging. Ah yes, the geo stuff. The one and only Creepy Pro, hello, welcome in. Nice to see you again too, and God bless you too, sir. Thank you for the lurk. Once with it, said Flask, coiling some spare line in the boat's bow. Did you never hear that the ship which but once had a sperm whale's head hoisted on her starboard side, and at the same time a right whale's on the larboard? Did you never hear, Stubb, that ship can never afterwards capsize? Why not? I don't know, but I heard that Gumbo's ghost of a Fedala saying so, and he seems to know all about ship's charms. But I sometimes think he'll charm the ship to no good at last. I don't half like that chap, Stubb. Did you ever notice how that tusk of his is a sort of carved into a snake's head, Stubb? Sink it. I never look at him at all, but if ever I get a chance of a dark night, and he's standing hard by the bulwarks and no one by, look down there, Flask, pointing into the sea with a peculiar motion of both hands. I. Flask, I take that Fedala to be the devil in disguise. Do you believe that cock-and-bull story about his having been stowed away on board the ship? He's the devil, I say. The reason why you don't see his tail is because he tucks it up out of sight. He carries it coiled away in his pocket, I guess. Blast him! Now that I think of it, he's always wanting oakum to stuff into the toes of his boots. He sleeps in his boots, doesn't he? He hasn't got any hammock. But I've seen him lay of nights in a coil of rigging, no doubt, and it's because of his cursed tail. He coils it down, do you see, in the eye of the rigging? Stubb is having some weird ideas here. At least I think he's. Hopefully I'm keeping track of who's talking here. What's the old man have so much to do with him for? Striking up a swap or a bargain, I suppose. Bargain about what? Why? Do you see, the old man is hard bent after the white whale, and the devil there is trying to come around him, and get him to swap away his silver watch, or his soul, or something of that sort. And then I'll surrender Moby Dick. Or then he'll surrender Moby Dick. Oh, Stubb, you are skylarking. How can Fedallah do that? I don't know, Flask, but the devil is a curious chap and a wicked one, I tell you. Why, they say as how he went a-sauntering into the old flagship once, wishing his tale about devilishly easy and gentlemanlike, and inquiring if the old governor was at home. Well, he was at home, and asked the devil what he wanted. The devil switching his roofs up and says, I want John. For what? Says the old governor. What business is that of yours? Says the devil, getting mad. I want to use him. Take him, says the governor, and by the Lord, Flask, if the devil didn't give John the Asiatic cholera before he got through with him, I'll eat this whale in one mouthful. But look sharp. Ain't you all ready there? Well then, pull ahead, and let's get the whale alongside. I think I remember some such story as you were telling, said Flask, when at last the two boats were slowly advancing with their burden towards the ship. But I can't remember where. 3 Spaniards? Adventures of those 3 bloody-minded soldados? Did ye read it there, Flask? I guess you did. No, never saw such a book. Heard of it, though. But now, tell me, Stubb, do you suppose that that devil you was speaking of just now was the same you say is now on board the Pequod? Am I the same man that helped kill this whale? Does the devil live forever? Whoever heard that the devil was dead? Did you ever see any parson wearing mourning for the devil? And if the devil has a latchkey to get into the admiral's cabin, don't you suppose he can crawl into a porthole? Tell me that, Mr. Flask. How old do you suppose Fedallah is, Stubb? Do you see that mainmast there, pointing to the ship? Well, that's the figure 1. Now take all the hoops in the Pequod's hold and string 'em along in a row with that mast. For aughts, do you see, well, that wouldn't begin to be Fedallah's age. Nor all the coopers in creation could show hoops enough to make enough aughts enough. But see here, Stubb, I thought you a little boasted just now that you meant to give Fedallah a sea toss, if you got a good chance. Now, if he's so old as all those hoops of yours come to, and if he is going to live forever, what good will it do to pitch him overboard? Tell me that. Give him a good ducking anyhow? But he'd crawl back. Flask has a point. Duck him again and keep ducking him. Suppose he should take it into his head to duck you, though. Yes, and drown you. What then? I should like to see him try it. I'd give him such a pair of black eyes that he wouldn't dare to show his face in the Admiral's cabin again for a long while, let alone down in the orlop there, where he lives, and hereabouts on the upper decks, where he sneaks so much. Damn the devil, Flask. So you suppose I'm afraid of the devil? Who's afraid of him, except the old governor who daren't catch him and put him in double darbies, as he deserves, but lets him go about kidnapping people. Aye, and signed a bond with him, that all the people the devil kidnapped, he'd roast for him. There's a governor. Do you suppose Fedallah wants to kidnap Captain Ahab? Do I suppose it? You'll know it before long, Flask. But I am going now to keep a sharp lookout on him. And if I see anything very suspicious going on, I'll just take him by the nape of his neck and say, "Look here, Beelzebub, you don't do it. And if he makes any fuss, by the Lord, I'll make a grab into his pocket for his tail, take it to the capstan, and give him such a wrenching and beating that his tail will come short off at the stump." I think this a bit loud. Let's bring it down a bit. Do you see? And then, I rather guess, when he finds himself docked in that queer fashion, he'll sneak off without the poor satisfaction of feeling his tail between his legs. And what will you do with the tail, Stubb? Good question. Do with it? Sell it for an ox whip when we get home. What else? Now, do you mean what you say? And have you been saying all along, Stubb? Mean or not mean? Here we are at the ship. The boats were here hailed to tow the whale on the larboard side, where flute chains and other necessaries were already prepared for securing him. Didn't I tell you so? Said Flask. Yes, you'll soon see this right whale's head hoisted up opposite the Parmacetti. In good time, Flask's saying proved true. As before, the Pequod steeply leaned over towards the sperm whale's head. Now, by the counterpoise of both heads, she regained her even keel, though sorely strained. You may well believe. Though, when on one side you hoist a lock's head, you go over that way. But now on the other side hoist in cants, and you came back again, but in very poor light. Thus some minds for ever keep trimming boat. Oh, ye foolish, throw all these thunderheads overboard, and then you will float light and right. In disposing of the body of a right whale, when brought alongside the ship, the same preliminary proceedings commonly take place as in the case of the sperm whale, only in the latter instance the head is cut off whole, but in the former the lips and tongue are separately removed and hoisted on deck, with all the well-known black bone attached to what is called the crown piece. But nothing like this in the present case had been done. The carcasses of both whales had dropped astern, and the head-laden ship not a little resembled a mule carrying a pair of overburdening panniers. Meantime, Fedallah was calmly eyeing the right whale's head, and ever and anon glancing from the deep wrinkles there to the lines in his own hand. And Ahab chanced so to stand that the Parsee occupied his shadow, while in the Parsee's shadow there was there at all it seemed only to blend with and lengthen Ahab's. As the crew toiled on, Laplandish speculations were bandied among them concerning all these passing things. That was an interesting one. A lot of theories being thrown about. Okay, this is like probably going into the anatomy of the thing again, so I am going to skip this chapter. I don't know. I'm having mixed feelings. We've got the sperm whale's head and then the right whale's head. I don't know. What I do know is I'm feeling a bit warm. Information coming up? Yeah, we still have 30 minutes. Might be an interesting read. I've changed my mind. Unless it like goes weird, then I'll skip. But this looks like an interesting read. Contrasted views. So maybe we'll learn something about fish heads. Just need to have a short break for my neck. Woo. Karl is still fishing, and you usually call him on a Monday night. Ah. So he's still busy with his fishing? Let's see what Christopher has. A nugget. It's not much of a snack, but at least it's a snack. Let's see what Data gets. Ooh, an Oreo Chromus. Doesn't look like an Oreo to me, but it's pretty. Milk and fishy. Hydrations, people. Not just me, but you too. Hydrate. Alrighty, let us read these heads, chapters. It does look interesting, so let's do the contrasted views. I have changed my mind. Chapter 74. Didn't we have 74 just now? 73. Okay. Chapter 74. The Sperm Whale's Head. Contrasted view. Here now are the two great whales, laying their heads together. Let us join them and lay together our own. Of the grand order of folio leviathans, the sperm whale and the right whale are by far the most noteworthy. They are the only whales regularly hunted by men. To the Nantucketer they present the two extremes of all the known varieties of the whale, as the external difference between them is mainly observable in their heads, and as a head of each of this moment hanging from the Pequod's side, and as we may freely go from one to the other by merely stepping across the deck, where I should like to know, will you obtain a better chance to study practical cetology than here? In the first place, you are struck by the general contrast between these two heads. Both are massive enough in all conscience, but there is a certain mathematical symmetry in sperm whales which the right whale sadly lacks. There is more character in the sperm whale's head. As you behold it, you involuntarily yield the immense superiority to him, in point of pervading dignity. In the present instance, too, this dignity is heightened by the pepper and salt color of his head at the summit, giving token of advanced age and large experience. In short, he is what the fishermen technically call a gray-headed whale. Let us now note what at least is similar in these heads namely the two most important organs, the eye and the ear. Far back on the side of the head, and low down near the angle of either whale's jaw, if you narrowly search, you will at last see a lashless eye, which you would fancy to be a young colt's eye. So out of all proportion is it to the magnitude of the head. Now, from this peculiar sideway position of the whale's eyes, is it plain that he can never see an object which is exactly ahead, no more than he can one exactly astern. In a word, the position of the whale's eyes corresponds to that of a man's ears, and you may fancy for yourself how it would fare with you, did you sideways survey objects through your ears. You would find that you could only command some 30 degrees of vision in advance of the straight sideline of sight, and about 30 more behind it. If your bitterest foe were walking straight towards you, with dagger uplifted in broad day, you would not be able to see him, any more than if he were stealing upon you from behind. In a word, you would have two backs, so to speak, but at the same time also two fronts, side fronts. For what is it that makes that front of a man? What, indeed, but his eyes? Moreover, while in most other animals that I can now think of, the eyes are so planted as imperceptibly to blend their visual power, so as to produce one picture and not two to the brain. The peculiar position of the whale's eyes, effectually divided as they are by many cubic feet of solid head, which towers between them like a great mountain separating two lakes and valleys. This, of course, must wholly separate the impressions which each dependent organ imparts. The whale, therefore, must see one distinct picture on this side and another distinct picture on that side, while all in between must be profound darkness and nothingness to him. Man may, in effect, be said to look out on the world from the sentry box, with two joined sashes for his window. But with the whale, these two sashes are separately inserted, making two distinct windows, but sadly impairing the view. This peculiarity of the whale's eyes is a thing always to be borne in mind in the fishery, and to be remembered by the reader in some subsequent scenes. A curious and most puzzling question might be started concerning this visual matter as touching the Leviathan, but I must be content with a hint. So long as a man's eyes were open in the light, the act of seeing is involuntary. That is, he cannot then help mechanically seeing whatever objects are before him. Nevertheless, anyone's experience will teach him that though he can take in an undiscriminating sweep of things at one glance, it is quite impossible for him, attentively and completely, to examine any two things, however large or however small, at one and the same instant of time. Never mind if they lie side by side and touch each other, but if you now come to separate those two objects and surround each by a circle of profound darkness, then in order to see one of them in such a manner as to bring your mind to bear on it, the other will be utterly excluded. You're not curious that so vast a being as a whale should see the world through so small an eye, and hear the thunder through an ear which is smaller than a hair's? But if his eyes were broad as the lens of Herschel's great telescope, and his ears capacious as the porches of cathedrals, would that make him any longer in sight or sharper of hearing? Not at all. Why then do you try to enlarge your mind and subtilize it? Alright, let's see. But come out now and look at this portentous lower jaw, which seems like the long narrow lid of an immense snuff box, with the hinge at one end instead of one side. If you pry it up so as to get it overhead and expose its rows of teeth, it seems a terrific portcullis. And such, alas, it proves to many a poor wight in the fishery, upon whom these spikes fall with impaling force. But far more terrible is it to behold, when fathoms down in the sea, you see some sulky whale floating there suspended, with his prodigious jaw, some 15 feet long, hanging straight down in the right angles of his body, for all the world like a ship's jibboom. This whale is not dead. He is only dispirited, out of sorts perhaps, hypochondriac, and so supine that the hinges of his jaws were relaxed, leaving him there in that ungainly sort of plight, a reproach to all his tribe, who must, no doubt, imprecate locked jaws upon him. In most cases, this lower jaw, being easily unhinged by a practiced artist, is disengaged and hoisted on deck, for the purpose of extracting the ivory teeth and furnishing a supply of that hard white whalebone, with which the fishermen fashion all sorts of curious articles, including canes, umbrella sticks, and handles to riding whips. With a long, weary hoist, the jaw is dragged on board, as if it were an anchor, and when the proper time comes, some few days after the work, Queequeg, Daggoo, and Tashtigo, being all accomplished dentists, are set to drawing teeth. With a keen cutting spade, Queequeg lances the gums, when then the jaw is lashed down to ring bolts, and a tackle being rigged from aloft. They drag out these teeth, as Michigan oxen drag stumps of old oaks out of wild woodlands. There are generally 42 teeth in all, in old whales, much worn down but undecayed, nor filled after our artificial fashion. The jaw is afterwards sawn into slabs and piled away like joists for building houses. My allergies are getting tougher now. That I don't know, but you could do other things and just sneeze and sneeze and sneeze and stuff. Yes. I totally understand. My mom has like severe allergies ever since I can remember, so I know how difficult allergies can be. So yeah, I hope you can find something to help with that, like a nasal spray or a little tablet that will help with that. A combination between cut crash, birch tree pollen, and aloe. Aloe? Like as in, salad. What is salad? Hold on. I'll Google it. Well, salad. Of a person's face or complexion, of an unhealthy yellow or pale brown color. I don't think that's what you meant. It is? It's a tree. Well, tell that to Google. How long is this one? Too long. We have 10 minutes. I'm going to see how far I can get. Google is a very naughty boy. Yeah, it's called Sol in Swedish. Interesting. Alrighty, chapter 75, The Right Whale's Head, Contrasted View. Crossing the deck, let us now have a good long look at the right whale's head. As in general shape, the noble sperm whale's head may be compared to a Roman war chariot, especially in front, where it is so broadly rounded. So, at a broad view, the right whale's head bears a rather inelegant resemblance to a gigantic galliot-toed shoe. 200 years ago, an old Dutch voyager likened its shape to that of a shoemaker's last. And in this same last, or shoe, that old woman of the nursery tale with the swarming brood might very comfortably be lodged, she and all her progeny. But as you come nearer to this great head, it begins to assume different aspects, according to your point of view. If you stand on its summit and look at these two F-shaped spout holes, you would take the whole head from an enormous bass vial. You told me violin? Okay? I don't know. Vial. And these spiracles, enormous bass vial, and these spiracles, the apertures in its sounding board. Then again, if you fix your eye upon this strange crested comb-like incrustation on the top of the mast, this green barnacle thing, which the Greenlanders call the crown, and the southern fishers the bonnet of the right whale, fixing your eyes solely on this, you would take the head of the trunk of some huge oak, with a bird's nest in its crotch. At any rate, when you watch those live crabs that nestle here on this bonnet, such an idea will be almost sure to occur to you, unless indeed your fancy has been fixed by the technical term crown, also bestowed upon it, in which case you will take great interest in thinking how this mighty monster is actually a diademed king of the sea, those whose green crown has been put together for him in this marvelous manner. But if this whale be a king, a very sulky looking fellow to grace a diadem. Look at that hanging lower lip. What a huge sulk and pout is there. A sulk and pout, by carpenter's measurement, about 20 feet long and 5 feet deep. A sulk and pout that will yield you some 500 gallons of oil and more. A great pity now that this unfortunate whale should be hair-lipped. The fisher is about a foot across. Probably the mother during an important interval was sailing down the Peruvian coast when earthquakes caused the beach to gape. Over this lip is over a slippery threshold. We now slide into the mouth. Upon the word where I at McKenna, I should take this to be the inside of an Indian wigwam. Good Lord, is this the road that Jonah went? The roof is about 12 feet high, and runs to a pretty sharp angle, as if there were a regular ridged pole there, while these ribbed, arched, hairy sides present us with those wondrous, half-vertical, scimitar-shaped slats of whalebone, say 300 on a side, which, depending from the upper part of the head or crown bone, form whose Venetian blinds, which have elsewhere been curiously mentioned. The edges of these bones are fringed with hairy fibers, through which the right whale strains the water, and in those intricacies he retains the small fish. When open-mouthed, he goes through the seas of Brit in feeding time. In the central blinds of bone, as they stand in their natural order, there are certain curious marks, curves, hollows, and ridges, whereby some whalemen calculate the creature's age, as the age of an oak by its circular rings. Though the certainty of this criterion is far from demonstrable, yet it has the savour of analogical probability. At any rate, if we yield to it, we must grant a far greater age to the right whale than at first glance will seem reasonable. In all times there seem to have prevailed the most curious fancies concerning these blinds. One voyager in Purchas calls them the wondrous whiskers inside the whale's mouth, another hog's bristles. A third old gentleman in Hakluyt uses the following elegant language. There are about 250 fins growing in each side of his upper chop, which arch over his tongue on each side of his mouth. As everyone knows, these same hog bristles, fins, and whiskers, blinds, or whatever you please, furnish to the ladies their busks and other stiffening contrivances. But in this particular, the demand has long been on the decline. It was in Queen Anne's time that the bone was in its glory, the farthingale being then all the fashion. And as those ancient dames moved about gaily, though in the jaws of the whale, as you may say, even so in a shower with the like thoughtlessness do we nowadays fly under the same jaws for protection, the umbrella being a tent spread over the same bone. Yes, I see I'm being bonked. Hold on, music. Where am I? Is the music distracting? Right, I shall lower the specs more. Is that better? Thank you for the bulk spam data. A bit more, okay. How's that? That better? It seems like it is better. Yeah, it's because it's been a while. I don't remember how I all the volume percentages. So it's good that you guys let me know if it's too loud or too distracting because it's too loud. Because I honestly cannot remember the percentages I used to have. Or lower it still, or spec. But yes, do let me know if it is still distracting because it's too loud. And there we go. Your bonk spam also got us ready for the break. Just doing my job. But you're doing it good. You're doing an excellent job of your job. Much appreciated. Yes, break time indeed. Okay, I don't have my phone to put on a timer, but that's okay. I'll just do it once we go on the break. Alrighty, folks. Grab whatever thing you use to have a little timer going. Whee! And I shall see you after the break. I will up the volume of the music for the break, and then I'll just remember what percentage I had it on beforehand. So I can bring it back down to a nice gentle low. It's currently 30%. Cool. We shall see you all after the break. Enjoy the break, everybody. Have yourselves a good snack, a good something to drink. Let me know what you had. BRB. Hello everybody, I is back. Hope you all had a good break. Ooh, lots of chatting. The reason why I'm playing this music, it's a little bit more upbeat and it keeps me going. And that is the reason for it. So apologies if it's a bit annoying. Mood music. Yeah, this is more akin to like semi-rock music, because this is dark synth. So yeah, it is going to be a little bit more on the edgy side. This music is from White Bat Audio. It's not from any game. You can find him on YouTube. This particular one is posted in the Discord, called Road Warriors. The house on the left, it looks a lot like your future house. Cool. I need to check my sound levels. Oh, the sound's not right. Yeah, the DMCA does limit music choice. That's why I use White Bat Audio's music. I like their music, and it keeps me going. I enjoy their music. Yes, there are some tracks that I'm not too fond of. That is a bit annoying. But I've heard worse. Rita, yes, we were busy on this page, yes. I almost finished this one. I think I will dodge that one, even though it's short. I will definitely dodge this one. The Heidelberg Town. I think this one is the next one that's actually part of the story. We finished this one because I started reading it. Galaxy Star Queen, hello, welcome in. You, been a while. And you are also a beautiful being. Welcome in, welcome in. Nasty sidetracking, yes. Much left to read? Behold. We still have way too much to read. You, Galaxy! Right, so I'll finish this one and skip this because this is... we don't need to go into the deep details of whale anatomy. I want to complain. But I will refrain. You doing alright? Taking one day at a time. That's good, that's good. Glad you're doing alright. At least you're not doing bad. Tomorrow is another day. Indeed, indeed. I don't even feel like finishing this one. I'm skipping. Skip. Skip. Cistern and buckets. Yep, that one is, I think, part of the story. Because we have people speaking here, I think. But let us continue then. Was it a pellar cyst? No, it was not. The hemangioma that was removed in December and gone septic, and it was that. So I got antibiotics, and ointment, and the wound spray. And that's why I was wearing that head sock the last time I was streaming, which was the week before last week. So it was worse than a pellar cyst. So a pellar cyst is firm, that which I had was soft, you know. And it had as wheat, so it had like little crusts and things. The skin specialist had quite the fight to get that off, because I told her even when it gets wet and soaked, it doesn't get soft. So it was quite the battle to clear it up, but she cleared it up, gave me all the things I needed, I took care of it, kept it clean. kept it all that, gave it the wound spray and the ointment, and it's all good now. Old school or easy tie bandana? Head sock. I am not good with bandanas. Or a head sock. Because I did post the update in the Discord. So, and I posted a link or a picture of the head sock that I used to keep the gauze in place. Feel free to find that and read the detailed update of this thing. You glad I'm okay now? I am glad too. You thought I made a mistake? No. I did not. Those things are actually called head socks. So weird. But yeah. I'm not very good with bandanas. I don't do well with tying things. Knots are not my forte. Dude. And do it yourself. Bruh. Yeah. Alrighty, let us continue. Chapter 78. Cistern and Buckets. Nimble as a cat, Tashtigo mounts aloft, and without altering his erect posture, runs straight out upon the overhanging mainyard arm, to the part where it exactly projects over the hoisted tun. He has carried with him a light tackle called a whip, consisting of only 2 parts, travelling through a single sheathed block. Securing this block so that it hangs down from the yard arm, he swings one end of the rope till it is caught and firmly held by a hand on the deck. Then, hand over hand, down the other part the Indian drops through the air, till dexterously he lands on the summit of the head. There, still high elevated above the rest of the company, to whom he vivaciously cries, he seems some Turkish muezzin calling the good people to prayers from the top of a tower. A short-handled, sharp spade being sent up to him, he diligently searches for the proper place to begin breaking into the tun. In this business he proceeds very heedfully, like a treasure hunter in some old house, sounding the walls to find where the gold is masoned in. By the time this cautious search is over, a stout iron bucket, precisely like a well bucket, has been attached to one end of the whip, while the other end, being stretched across the deck, is there held by 2 or 3 alert hands. These last now hoist the bucket within grasp of the Indian, to whom another person has reached up a very long pole. Inserting this pole into the bucket, Tashtigo downward guides the bucket into the tun, till it entirely disappears, then giving the word to the seaman and the whip. At the whip, up comes the bucket again, all bubbling like a dairy maid's pail of new milk. Carefully lowered from its height, the full-freighted vessel is caught by an appointed hand and quickly emptied into a large tub. Then, remounting aloft, it again goes through the same round until the deep cistern will yield no more. Towards the end, Tashtigo has to ram his long pole harder and harder, and deeper into the tun, until some 20 feet of the pole had gone down. Now, the people of the Pequod, had been bailing some time in this way. Several tubs had been filled with the fragrant sperm, when all at once a queer accident happened. Whether it was that Testigo, that wild Indian, was so heedless and reckless as to let go for a moment his one-handed hold on the great cable tackle suspending the head, or whether the place where he stood was so treacherous and oozy, or whether the evil one himself would have it to fall out so, without stating his particular reasons. How it was exactly there is no telling now, but on a sudden, as the 18th or 19th bucket came shockingly up, my God, poor Tashtigo, like the twin reciprocating bucket in a veritable well, dropped head foremost down into this great ton of Heidelberg, and with a horrible oily gurgling went clean out of sight. "Man overboard!" cried Dagoon, who amid the general consternation first came to his senses. "Swing the bucket this way," and putting one foot into it, so as the better to secure his slippery hold on the whip itself, the hoisters ran him high, up to the top of the head, almost before Tashtigo could have reached its inferior bottom. Meanwhile there was a terrible tumult. Looking over the side, they saw the before lifeless head throbbing and heaving just below the surface of the sea, as if the moment seized with some momentous idea, whereas it was only the poor Indian unconsciously revealing that by those struggles the perilous depths to which he had sunk. At this instant, while Dagoon, on the summit of the head, was clearing the whip, which had somehow got foul of the great cutting tackles, a sharp crackling noise was heard, and to the unspeakable horror of all, one of the two enormous hooks suspending the head tore out, and with a vast vibration the enormous mass sideways swung, till the drunk ship reeled and shook as if smitten by an iceberg. The one remaining hook upon which the entire strain now depended seemed every instant to be on the point of giving way, an event still more likely from the violent motions of the head. Come down," yelled the seaman to Dagoon, but with one hand holding on to the heavy tackles, so that if the head should drop, he would still remain suspended. The negro, having cleared the foul line, rammed down the bucket into the now collapsed well, meaning that the buried harpooner should grasp it and so be hoisted out. "In heaven's name, man," cried Stuck, "are you ramming home a cartridge there? Avast, how will that help him, jamming that iron-bound bucket on top of his head? Avast, will he?" "Stand clear of the tackle," cried a voice like the bursting of a rocket. Almost in the same instant, with a thunder boom, the enormous mass dropped into the sea, like Niagara's Table Rock into the whirlpool. The suddenly revealed hull rolled away from it to far down her glittering copper, and all caught their breath, as half-swinging now over the sailors' heads and now over the water, Dagoon, through a thick mist of spray, was dimly beheld clinging to the pendulous tackles, while poor, buried alive Tashtigo was sinking utterly down to the bottom of the sea. But hardly had the blinding vapor cleared away when a naked figure with a boarding sword in his hand was for one swift moment seen hovering over the bulwarks. The next a loud splash announced that my brave Queequeg had dived to the rescue. One packed rush was made to the side, and every eye counted every ripple, as moment followed moment, and no sign of either the sinker or the diver could be seen. Some hands now jumped into a boat alongside and pushed a little off from the ship. "Ha ha!" cried Dagoon, all at once, from his now quiet swinging perch overhead. and looking further off from the side, he saw an arm thrust upright from the blue waves, a sight strange to see, as an arm thrust forth from the grass over a grave. "Both, both, it is both!" cried Daggoo again with a joyful shout, and soon after Queequeg was seen boldly striking out with one hand, and with the other clutching the long hair of the Indian. Drawn into the waiting boat, they were quickly brought to the deck, but the Tashtigo was long in coming to, and Queequeg did not look very brisk. Now, how had this noble rescue been accomplished? Why, diving after the slowly descending head, Queequeg, with his keen sword, had made side lunges near its bottom, so as to scuttle a large hole there. Then, dropping his sword, had thrust his long arm in, far inwards and upwards, and so hauled out poor Tash by the head. He averred that upon first thrusting in for him, a leg was presented. A leg is a little difficult to hold on to, but well knowing that that was not as it ought to be, and might occasion great trouble, he had thrust back the leg, and by a dexterous heave and toss, had wrought a somerset upon the Indian, so that with the next trial he came forth in the good old way, head foremost. As for the great head itself, that was doing as well as could be expected. And thus, through the courage and great skill in obstetrics of Queequeg, the deliverance, or rather delivery, of Tashtigo was successfully accomplished, in the teeth, too, of the most untoward and apparently hopeless impediments, which is a lesson by no means to be forgotten. Midwifery should be taught in the same course, with fencing and boxing, riding and rowing. Yeah, I kind of agree with that one. I know that this queer adventure of the grey-headers will be sure to seem incredible to some landsmen, though they themselves may have either seen or heard of someone's falling into a cistern ashore. An accident which not seldom happens, and with much less reason too than the Indians, considering the exceeding slipperiness of the curb of the sperm whale's well. But, peradventure, it may be sagaciously urged. How is this? I think I have that word somewhere. Let me see. Anybody have some food, good food during the break? That's a good question. Sagacity. To know not about. But peradventure, it may be sagaciously urged. How is this? We thought the tissued, infiltrated head of the sperm whale was the lightest and most corky part about him, and yet thou makest it sink in an element of a far greater specific gravity than itself. We have thee there, not at all, but I have ye, for at the time poor Tash fell in, the case had been nearly emptied of its lighter contents, leaving little but the dense tendinous wall of the well, a double-welled hammered substance, as I have before said, much heavier than the sea water, and a lump of which sinks in it like lead almost. But the tendency to rapid sinking in this substance was in the present instance materially counteracted by the other parts of the head remaining untouched. undetached from it, so that it sank very slowly and deliberately indeed, affording Queequeg a fair chance for performing his agile obstetrics on the run, as you may say. Yes, it was a running delivery, so it was.
Nobody responded.
That's alright, they all fell asleep. It's okay, Data. No worries. But did you have something to eat? I had a cheese sandwich with a little bit of mayonnaise. And a coffee, of course. Now, had Testigo perished in that head, it had been a very precious perishing, smothered in the very whitest and daintiest of fragments spermaceti, coffined, hearsed, and tombed in the secret inner chamber and sanctum sanctorum of the whale. Only one sweeter end can readily be recalled, the delicious death of an Ohio honey hunter, who, seeking honey in the crotch of a hollow tree, found such exceeding store of it that leaning too far over, it sucked him in, so that he died embalmed. How many, think ye, have likewise fallen into Plato's honey head and sweetly perished there? That is an interesting question. Now, you had blood sausage? Ah, good. Cool. And now we're back to the physiology of an animal. Yeah, we can skip that. Yeah, we can skip this as well. Alrighty, chapter 81. Let us continue then, I guess, shall we? The Beakwood meets the Virgin. The predestined day arrived, and we duly met the ship Jungfrau Derrick de Beer, master of Bremen. At one time the greatest whaling people in the world, the Dutch and Germans are now among the least, but here and there, at very wide intervals of latitude and longitude, you still occasionally meet with their flag in the Pacific. For some reason, the Jungfrau seemed quite eager to pay her respects. While yet some distance from the Pequod, she rounded to, and dropping a boat, her captain was impelled towards us, impatiently standing in the bows instead of the stern. "What has he in his hand there?" cried Starbuck, pointing to something wavingly held by the German. "Impossible! A lamp feeder!" "Not that," said Stubb. No, it's a coffee pot, Mr. Starbuck. He's coming off to make us our coffee. It's the Yarman. Don't you see that big tin can there alongside of him? That's his boiling water. Oh, he's all right. It's the Yarman." "Go along with you," cried Flask. "It's a lamp feeder and an oil can. He's out of oil and has come a-begging." Yeah, that sounds more like it. A wild Jen appears. "Hello, Jen. Hello. How is you?" "Lovely friends, yes. Hope you are doing well." However curious it may seem for an oil ship to be borrowing oil on the whale ground, and however much it may inadvertently contradict the old proverb about carrying coals to Newcastle, yet sometimes such a thing really happens. And in the present case, Captain Derrick de Beer did indubitably conduct a lamp feeder as Flask did declare. As he mounted the deck, Ahab abruptly accosted him, without at all heeding what he had in his hand, but in his broken lingo. The German soon evinced his complete ignorance of the white whale. Immediately turning the conversation to his lamp feeder and oil can, with some remarks touching his having to turn into his hammock at night in profound darkness, his last drop of Bremen oil being gone, and not a single flying fish yet captured to supply the deficiency, concluding by hinting that his ship was indeed what in the fishery is technically called a clean one, that is, an empty one, well deserving the name of Jungfrau or the Virgin. His necessities supplied, Derrick departed, but he had not gained his ship's side, when whales were almost simultaneously raised from the mastheads of both vessels, and so eager for the chase was Derrick that without pausing to put his oil can and lamp feeder aboard, he slewed around the boat and made after the Leviathan lamp feeders. Now the game having risen to leeward, he and the other 3 German boats that soon followed him had considerably the start of the Pequod's keels. There were 8 whales, an average pod. Aware of their danger, they were going all abreast with great speed, straight before the wind, rubbing their flanks as closely as so many spans of horses in harness. They left a great wide wake, as though continually unrolling a great wide parchment upon the sea. Full in this rapid wake, and many fathoms in the rear, swam a huge humped old bull, which by his comparatively slow progress, as well as by the unusual yellowish incrustations overgrowing him, seemed afflicted with the jaundice, or some other infirmity. Whether this whale belonged to the pod in advance seemed questionable, for it is not customary for such vulnerable leviathans to be at all social. Nevertheless, he stuck to their wake, though indeed their backwater must have retarded him, because the white bone, as or swell at his broad muzzle, was a dashed one, like the swell formed when 2 hostile currents meet. His spout was short, slow, and laborious, coming forth with a choking sort of gush, and spending itself in torn shreds, followed by strange subterranean commotions in him, which seemed to have egress at his other buried extremity, causing the waters behind him to upbubble. Who's got some paregoric? Said Stubb. He has the stomachache, I'm afraid. Lord, think of having half an acre of stomachache. Adverse winds are holding mad Christmas in him. Holding mad Christmas in him, boys. It's the first foul wind I ever knew to blow from astern. But look, did ever whale yaw so before? It must be his tiller. As an overladen Indian man bearing down the Hindostan coast with a deckload of frightened horses, careens, berries, rolls, and wallows on her way, so did this old whale heave his aged bulk, and now and then partly turning over on his cumbrous ribbons, expose the cause of his devious wake in the unnatural stump of his starboard fin. Whether he had lost that fin in battle, or had been born without it, it were hard to say. Only wait a bit, old chap, and I'll give ye a sling for that wounded arm, cried cruel Flask, pointing to the whale line near him. Trust that guy, if I was that whale. Keep swimming, Guy, keep swimming. Mind he don't sling thee with it, cried Starbuck. "Give way, or the German will have him." With one intent, all the combined rival boats were pointed for this one fish, because not only was he the largest, and therefore the most valuable whale, but he was nearest to them, and the other whales were going with such great velocity, moreover, as almost to defy pursuit for any time. At this juncture the Pequod's keels had shot by the three German boats last lowered, but from the great start he had Derek's boat still led the chase, though every moment neared by his foreign rivals. The only thing they feared was that from being already so nigh to his mark, he would be enabled to dart his iron before they could completely overtake and pass him. As for Derek, he seemed quite confident that this would be the case, and occasionally with a deriding gesture shook his lamp feeder at the other boats. "The ungracious and ungrateful dog," cried Starbuck. "He mocks and dares me with the very poor box I filled for him not 5 minutes ago." He sounds very upset. Then in his old intense whisper, "Give way, greyhounds, dog to it." "I tell you, what is it, men?" cried Stubb to his crew. "It's against my religion to get mad, but I'd like to eat that villainous yarman. Oh, Moby, are you going to let that rascal beat ye? Do ye love brandy? A hogshead of brandy, then, to the best man. Come, why don't some of ye burst a blood vessel? Who's that been dropping an anchor overboard? We don't budge an inch. We're becalmed. Hello, here's grass growing at the boat's bottom." In other words, he's saying they are really slow. And I don't think so. I think those guys are giving it their all. "And by the Lord, the mast, there's Buddy." Stuff is growing, apparently. "This won't do, boys. Look at that yarman. The short and long of it is, men, will ye spit fire or not?" "Oh, see the suds he makes," cries Flask, dancing up and down. "What a hump! Oh, do pile on the beef. Lays like a log. Oh my, lads, do spring. Slapjacks and quahogs for supper. You know, my lads, baked clams and muffins. Oh, do spring. He's 100-barreler. Don't lose him now. Don't, oh, don't. See that yarman? Oh, won't ye pull for your duff, my lads? Such a sog, such a sogger. Don't ye love sperm? There goes $3,000, men. A bank, a whole bank. The Bank of England. Oh, do. What's that yarman about now?" At this moment, Derek was in the act of pitching his lamp feeder at the advancing boats, and also his oil can, perhaps with the double view of retarding his rival's way, and at the same time economically accelerating his own by the momentary impetus of the backward toss. "The unmannerly Dutch-dogger!" cried Stubb. "Pull now, men, like 50,000 line of battleship loads of red-haired devils. What d'ye say, Tashtego? Are you the man to snap your spine in 2 and 20 pieces for the honor of old Gayhead? What say? What d'ye say?" "I say pull like goddamn," cried the engine, fiercely, but evenly incited by the taunts of the German. The Pequod's 3 boats now began ranging almost abreast, and so disposed momentarily neared him, in that fine, loose, chivalrous attitude of the headsman, when drawing near to his prey. The 3 mates stood up proudly, occasionally backing the after oarsman with an exhilarating cry of, "There she slides now! Hurrah for the White Ash Breeze! Down with the yarman! Sail over him!" But so decided an original start had Derek had, that in spite of all their gallantry, he would have proved the victor in this race, had not a righteous judgment descended upon him in a crab, which caught the blade of his midship oarsman, while this clumsy lubber was striving to free his white ash, and while in consequence Derek's boat was nigh to capsizing, and he thundering away at his men in a mighty rage. That was a good time for Starbuck, Stubb, and Flask. With a shout, they took a mortal start forward, and slantingly ranged up to the German's quarter. An instant more, and all four boats were diagonally in the whale's immediate wake, while stretching from them on both sides was the foaming swell that he made. It was a terrific, most pitiable and maddening sight. The whale was now going head out, and sending his spout before him in a continual tormented jet, while this one poor fin beat his side in an agony of fright. Now this hand, now to this hand, now to that, he yawed in his faltering flight, and still at every billow that he broke, he spasmodically sank in the sea, or sideways rolled toward the sky his one beating fin, so have I seen a bird with clipped wing, making a frightened, broken circle in the air, vainly striving to escape the piratical hawks. But the bird has a voice, and with plaintive cries will make known her fear. But the fear of this vast dumb brute of the sea was chained up and enchanted in him. He had no voice, save that choking respiration through his spiracle, and this made the sight of him unspeakably pitiable, while still in his amazing bulk, portcullis jaw, and omnipotent tail, there was enough to appall the stoutest man who so pitied. Seeing now that but a very few moments more would give the Pequod's boat the advantage, and rather than be thus foiled of this game, Derek chose to hazard what to him must have seemed a most unusual long dart. Here the last chance would for ever escape. But no sooner did his harpooner stand up for the stroke than all three tigers, Pickwick, Tashtego, Daggoo, instinctively sprang to their feet, and standing in a diagonal row, simultaneously pointed their barbs, and darted over the head of the German harpooner. Their three Nantucket irons entered the whale, blinding vapors of foam and white fire. The three boats, in the first fury of the whale's headlong rush, bumped the Germans aside with such force that both Derek and his baffled harpooner were spilled out and sailed over by the three flying keels. "Don't be afraid, my butter boxes," cried Stubb, casting a passing glance upon them as he shot by. "You'll be picked up presently, all right? I saw some sharks astern." St. Bernard's dog, you know. Relieve distressed travelers, hurrah! This is the way to sail now. Every keel a sunbeam, hurrah! Here we go like three tin kettles at the tail of a mad cougar. This puts me in mind of fastening to an elephant in a tilbury on a plain. Makes the wheel spokes fly, boys. When you fasten to him that way, and there's danger of being pitched out too, when you strike a hill, hurrah! This is the way a fellow feels when he's doing the Davy Jones. All rush down an endless inclined plane, hurrah! This whale carries the everlasting mail. But the monster's run was a brief one. Giving a sudden gasp, it tumultuously sounded, he tumultuously sounded. With a grating rush, the 3 lines flew round the loggerheads with such a force as to gouge deep grooves in them. While so fearful were the harpooneers that this rapid sounding would soon exhaust the lines, and using all their dexterous might, they caught repeatedly smoking turns with the rope to hold on, till at last, owing to the perpendicular strain from the lead-lined chocks of the boat, whence the 3 ropes went straight down into the blue. The gunwales and the bows were almost even with the water, while the 3 sterns tilted high in the air, and the whale soon ceasing to sound. For some time they remained in that attitude, fearful of expending more line, though the position was a little ticklish. But though boats have been taken down and lost in this way, yet it is this holding on, as it is called, this hooking up by the sharp barbs of his live flesh from the back. This it is that often torments the Leviathan into soon rising again to meet the sharp lance of his foes. Yet not to speak of the peril of the thing, it is to be doubted whether this course is always the best, for it is but reasonable to presume that the longer the stricken whale stays on the water, the more he is exhausted, because owing to the enormous surface of him, in a full-grown sperm whale something less than 2,000 square feet, the pressure of the water is immense. We all know what an astonishing atmospheric weight we ourselves stand up under, even here above ground in the air. How vast then the burden of a whale, bearing on his back a column of 200 fathoms of ocean. It must at least equal the weight of 50 atmospheres. One whaleman has estimated it at the weight of 20 line of battleships, with their guns and stores of men on board. As the 3 boats lay there on that gently rolling sea, gazing down into its eternal blue noon, and as not a single groan or cry of any sort, nay, not so much as a ripple or a bubble came up from its depth, the landsmen would have thought that beneath all that silence and placidity, the utmost monster of the seas was writhing and retching in agony. Not 8 inches of perpendicular rope were visible at the bows. Seems it credible that by 3 such thin threads the great Leviathan was suspended like a big weight to an 8-day clock? Suspended? And to what? To 3 bits of board. Is this the creature of whom it was once triumphantly said, "Canst thou fool his skin with barbed irons, or his head with fish spears? The sword of him that layeth at him cannot hold the spear, the dart, nor the habergeon. He esteemeth iron as straw. The arrow cannot make him flee. Darts are counted as stubble. He laugheth at the shaking of a spear." This creature? This he? Oh, that unfulfillments should follow the prophets. For with the strength of 1,000 thighs in his tail, Leviathan had run his head under the mountains of the sea to hide him from the Pequod's fish spears. In that sloping afternoon sunlight, the shadows of the 3 boats sent down beneath the surface must have been long enough and broad enough to shade half Xerxes' army. Who can tell how appalling to the wounded whale must have been such huge fathoms splitting over his head? "Stand by, men! He stirs!" cries Starbuck, as the 3 lines suddenly vibrated in the water, distinctly conducting upwards to them. As by magnetic wires, the life and death throbs of the whale. so that every oarsman felt them in his seat. The next moment, relieved in great part from the downward strain at the bows, the boats gave a sudden bounce upwards, as a small ice field will, when a dense herd of white bears are scared from it into the sea. Haul in, cried Starbuck again. He's rising. The lines of which hardly an instant before not one hand's breadth could have been gained, were now in long quick coils flung back in, dripping into the boats, and soon the whale broke water within 2 ship lengths of the hunters. His motions plainly denoted his extreme exhaustion. In most land animals there are certain valves or floodgates in many of their veins. Thereby, when wounded, the blood is, in some degree at least, instantly shut off in certain directions. Not so with the whale, one of whose peculiarities it is to have an entire non-valvular structure of the blood vessels, so that when pierced, even by so small a point as a harpoon, a deadly drain is at once begun upon his whole arterial system. I didn't know that. I thought they also had like little valves like we have in our veins. But apparently they don't. And when this is heightened by the extraordinary pressure of water at a great distance below the surface, his life may be said to pour from him in incessant streams. Yet so vast is the quantity of blood in him, and so distant and numerous its interior fountains, that he will keep thus bleeding and bleeding for a considerable period, even as in a drought a river will flow, whose source is the well springs of far off and indiscernible hills. Even now, when the boats pulled upon this whale, and perilously drew over his swaying flukes, and the lances were darted into him, they were followed by steady jets from the new-made wound, which kept continually playing, while the natural spout-hole in his head was only at intervals, however rapid, sending its affrighted moisture into the air. From the last vent no blood yet come, because no vital part of him had thus far been struck. His life, as they significantly call it, was untouched. As the boats now more closely surrounded him, the whole upper part of his form, with much of it that is ordinarily submerged, was plainly revealed. His eyes, or rather the places where his eyes had been, were beheld, as strange mist-grown masses gather in the knot-holes of the noblest oaks, when prostrate, so from the points which the whale's eyes had once occupied, now protruded blind bulbs, horribly pitiable to see. But pity there was none. For all his old age, and his one arm, and his blind eyes, he must die the death, and be murdered, in order to light the gay bridals and other merry-makings of men, and also to illuminate the solemn churches that preach unconditional inoffensiveness by all to all. Still rolling in his blood, at last he partially disclosed a strangely discolored bunch of protuberance, the size of a bushel, low down on the flank. "A nice spot," cried Flask. "Just let me prick him there once." "Avast!" cried Starbuck. "There's no need of that." But humane Starbuck was too late. At the instant of the dart, an ulcerous jet shot from this cruel wound, and goaded by it into more than sufferable anguish. The whale, now spouting thick blood with swift fury, blindly darted into the craft, bespattering them and their glorying crews all over with showers of gore, capsizing Flask's boat and marring the bows. It was his death stroke. For by this time so spent was he by loss of blood, that he helplessly rolled away from the wreck he had made. Lay panting on his side, impotently flapped with his stumped fin, then over and over, slowly revolving like a waning world. Turned up the white secrets of his belly, lay like a log and died. It was most piteous, that last expiring spout, as when by unseen hands the water is gradually drawn off from some mighty fountain, and with half-stifled melancholy gurglings the spray column lowers and lowers to the ground, to the last long dying spout of the whale. Soon, while the crews were awaiting the arrival of the ship, the body showed symptoms of sinking with all its treasures unrifled. Immediately, by Starbuck's orders, lines were secured to it at different points, so that ere long every boat was a buoy, the sunken whale being suspended a few inches beneath them by the cords. By very heedful management, when the ship drew nigh, the whale was transferred to her side and was strongly secured there by the stiffest fluke chains, for it was plain that unless artificially upheld, the body would at once sink to the bottom. It so chanced that almost upon first cutting into him with the spade, the entire length of a corroded harpoon was found embedded in his flesh, on the lower part of the bunch before described. But as the stumps of harpoons were frequently found in the dead bodies of captured whales, with the flesh perfectly healed around them, and no prominence of any kind to denote their place, therefore there must needs have been some other unknown reason in the present case fully to account for the ulceration alluded to. But still more curious was the fact of a lance head of stone being found in it, not far from the buried iron, the flesh perfectly firm about it. Who had darted that stone lance, and when? It might have been darted by some Norwest Indian long before America was discovered. What other marvels might have been rummaged out of this monstrous cabinet, there is no telling, but a sudden stop was put to further discoveries by the ship's being unprecedentedly dragged over sideways by the sea, owing to the body's immense increasing tendency to sink. However, Starbuck, who had the ordering of affairs, hung on to it to the last, hung on to it so resolutely indeed, that when at length the ship would have been capsized, if still persisting in locking arms with the body. Then, when the command was given to break clear from it, such was the immovable strain upon the timber heads to which the fluke chains and cables were fastened, that it was impossible to cast them off. Well, impossible to cast them off? Jeepers. Meantime, everything in the Pequod was aslant. To cross to the other side of the deck was like walking up the steep gabled roof of a house. The ship groaned and gasped. Many of the ivory inlayings of her bulwarks and cabins were started from their places by the unnatural dislocation. In vain handspikes and crows were brought to bear upon the immovable fluke chains, to pry them adrift from the timber heads, and so low had the whale now settled that the submerged ends could not be at all approached, while every moment whole tons of ponderosity seemed added to the sinking bulk, and the ship seemed on the point of going over. Hold on, won't ye?" cried Stubb to the body, Don't be in such a devil of a hurry to sink. By thunder, men, we must do something or go for it. No use prying here. Avast, I say, with your handspikes, and run one of ye for a prayer book and a penknife, and cut the big chains. Knife? Aye, aye, cried Quick Quick, and seizing the carpenter's heavy hatchet, he leaned out of the porthole and steel to iron began slashing at the largest flute chains. But a few strokes, full of sparks, were given, when the exceeding strain affected the rest. With a terrific snap, every fastening went adrift. The ship righted, the carcass sank. Now, this occasional inevitable sinking of the recently killed sperm whale is a very curious thing, nor has any fisherman yet adequately accounted for it. Usually the dead sperm whale floats with great buoyancy, with its side or belly considerably elevated above the surface. If the only whales that thus sank were old, meagre, and broken-hearted creatures, their pads of lard diminished, and all their bones heavy and rheumatic, then you might with some reason assert that this sinking is caused by an uncommon specific gravity in the fish, so sinking, consequent upon this absence of buoyant matter in him. But it is not so, for young whales, in the highest health, and swelling with noble aspirations, prematurely cut off in the warm flush of May of life, with all their panting lard about them, even these brawny, buoyant heroes do sometimes sink. Be it said, however, that the sperm whale is far less liable to this accident than any other species. Where one of that sort go down, 20 right whales do. The difference in the species is no doubt imputable in no small degree to the greater quantity of bone in the right whale. The Venetian glides along sometimes weighing more than a ton. From the encumbrance the sperm whale is wholly free. But there are instances where after the lapse of many hours of several days, the sunken whale again rises, more buoyant than in life. But the reason of this is obvious. Gases are generated in him. He swells to a prodigious magnitude, becomes a sort of animal balloon. A line of battleship could hardly keep him under them. In the shore whaling, on soundings among the bays of New Zealand, when a right whale gives token of sinking, they fasten buoys to him, with plenty of rope, so that when the body has gone down, they know where to look for it when it shall have ascended again. It was not long after the sinking of the body that a cry was heard from the Queequeg's mastheads, announcing that the Jungfrau was again lowering their boats, though the only spout in sight was that of the finback, belonging to the species of uncapturable whales, because of its incredible power of swimming. Nevertheless, the finback spout is so similar to the sperm whales that by unskillful fishermen it is often mistaken for it, and consequently Derrick and all his host were now in valiant chase of this unnearable brute. The Virgin, crowding all sail, must after her 4 young keels, and thus they all disappeared, far to leeward, still in bold, hopeful chase. Oh, many are the finbacks, and many are the derricks, my friend. That was quite a long chapter. How many pages was that? Yeah, that was a lot of pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No sleep for me this morning, so I will try to get past the bit I'm stuck on after the street. I'm flipped. This book is weird. Yes, it is. So what are you stuck on? We've made some good progress, I think. That's a lot of pages. Okay. You can still talk about it if you want. The honor and glory of whaling, yes, we will skip that one right off the bat. The honor historically regarded, yes, we will also skip that. Pitch polling. No, I think we'll continue here. And I'll also skip the fountain. Right, we'll read the pitch polling. We'll have 20 minutes. So I'm gonna read this one. And if the next one is also short, then I'll read that one. I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting kinda tired. It's a bit with ultra tough zombies that are hard to kill because it's a very claustrophobic area where I'm trying to fight them and I was cursing like a monkey. Oh no. It sounds really tough though. Yeah, claustrophobic areas, like, yeah, that's very difficult to work with. Small spaces, especially when you need space to fight in a game. Alrighty, at chapter 84. Pitch polling. To make them run easily and swiftly, the axles of carriages are anointed. And for much the same purpose, some whalers perform an analogous operation upon their boats. They grease the bottom. Nor is it to be doubted that as such a procedure can do no harm, it may possibly be of no contemptible advantage. Considering that oil and water are hostile, that oil is a sliding thing, and that the object in view is to make the boat slide bravely. Queequeg believed strongly in anointing his boat, and one morning, not long after the German ship Jungfrau disappeared, they took more than customary pains in that occupation, crawling under its bottom, where it's hung over the side and rubbing in the I think that's wrongly spelled. Unctuousness. Write that down. I really do think that this is written wrong, typo all times. I don't know. Maybe it is an actual word. Only our dictionary will tell us. Roastness. Hang on, maybe I should lure them outside. Might actually try to see a nice one. Glad I could help. Alright, as though diligently seeking to ensure a crop of hair from the craft's bald queue, he seemed to be working in obedience to some particular presentiment, nor did it remain unwarranted by the event. Towards noon whales were raised, but so soon as the ship sailed down to them, they turned and fled with swift precipitancy. Tongue twisters. A disordered flight, as of Cleopatra's barges from Actium. Nevertheless, the boats pursued, and Stubbs was foremost. By great exertion, Tashtigo at last succeeded in planting one iron, but the stricken whale, without at all sounding, still continued his horizontal flight, with added fleetness. Such unintermitted strainings upon the planted iron must sooner or later inevitably extract it. It became imperative to lance the flying whale, or be content to lose him. But to haul the boat up to his flanks was impossible. He swam so fast and furious. What then remained? Of all the wondrous devices and dexterities, the sleights of hand, and countless subtleties to which the veteran whaleman is so often forced, none exceed that fine maneuver with the lance called pitch-poling. Small sword or broadsword, in all its exercises, boasts nothing like it. It is only indispensable with an inveterate running whale. Its grand fact and feature is the wonderful distance to which the long lance is accurately darted from a violently rocking, jerking boat under extreme headway. Steel and wood included, the entire spear is some 10 or 12 feet in length. The staff is much slighter than that of the harpoon, and also of a lighter material, pine. It is furnished with a small rope called a warp, of considerable length, by which it can be hauled back to the hand after darting. But, before going further, it is important to mention here that though the harpoon may be pitched in the same way with the lance, yet it is seldom done, and when done, is still less frequently successful, on account of the greater weight and inferior length of the harpoon as compared with the lance, which in effect becomes serious drawback. As a general thing, therefore, you must first get to a whale, before any pitch-poling comes into play. Look now at Stubb, a man who, from his humorous, deliberate coolness and equanimity in the direst emergencies, was specially qualified to excel in pitch-poling. Look at him, he stands upright in the tossed bow of the flying boat. Wrapped in fleecy foam, the towing whale is 40 feet ahead, handling the long lance lightly, glancing twice or thrice along its length to see if it be exactly straight. Stubb whistlingly gathers up the coil of the raft in one hand, so as to secure its free end in his grasp, leaving the rest unobstructed. Then, holding the lance full before his waistband's middle, he levels it at the whale. When covering him with it, he steadily depresses the butt end in his hand, thereby elevating the point till the weapon lands fairly balanced upon his palm, 15 feet in the air. He minds you somewhat of a juggler, balancing a long staff on his chin. Next moment, with a rapid, nameless impulse, in a superb arch, the bright steel spans the foaming distance, and quivers in the life spot of the whale. Instead of sparkling water, he now spouts red blood. "That drove the spigot out of him," cried Stubb. "'Tis July's immortal. 'Tis July's immortal Fourth. All fountains must run wine today. Would now it were Old Orleans whiskey, or Old Ohio, or unspeakable Old Monongahela. Then, Tashtigo, lad, I'd have ye hold a cannikin to the gin, and we'd drink round it. Yea, verily, hearts alive, we drew choice punch in the spread of his spout hole there, and from that live punch bowl quaff the living stuff." Again and again, to such gamesome talk, the dexterous dart is repeated, the spear returning to its master like a greyhound held in skilful leash. The agonized whale goes into his flurry, the towline is slackened, and the pitch-poler, dropping astern, holds his hands and mutely watches the monster die. I have to say, the descriptions in this is quite gruesome, to say the least. But we have made more progress. That is quite the progress we've made today. I think I'll skip this one. The tail. Poets. Yeah, that's already a good indication. We can skip this one. The Grand Armada. What is that even about? Is that even supposed to be in the story? Like, I mean, come on. I'm going to skip chapters up until we find the rest of the story. Maybe this is part of the story. No. It seems a part of the story is in this chapter. But I will not be reading the whole thing because we'll say we'll put the lint over here. And we can read part of it. Maybe I might even read the whole thing of it because I'll have more energy tomorrow. So here we go. This is where we end this story of Moby Dick. Very detailed indeed, Zeta. You have to update your subs next week because you got a big power bull yesterday. Ouch! Vodafone are probably gonna go into my account tonight. Bulls suck. Yeah. Bulls are horrible. Yeah, they surely do. They do suck quite a bit. Fortunately, not the useful kind of suck like an electronics. Alrighty, we've got 2 words today. Interregnum and unctuousness, I think is how we say it. Not sure. Alright, so the first one is an I. I bent some pages. That was not very nice of me. Here it is. Found it. Let me see. Can I zoom it in for you guys? Oh, yes, I can. Let's go. Interregnum. The time between one reign and the next. The period of time between the end of one reign or regime and the beginning of the next. Time without government or control. A period of time during which there is no government, control, or authority. Interruption. A pause or gap in any continuous activity or series. Late 16th century, from Latin. Period between kingships. From regnum, see reign. Originally, the English word denoted the temporary authority in place between reigns. Interregnum. Okay. I think in the context of this story, it is time. So, the interruption, a pause or gap in any continuous activity. So I'm gonna write that one down. Alrighty. Don't buy Dyson. They suck. Indeed, Stella, indeed. 500,000 words in the English language. Only one way to get a pint. Great. Let's see. Now the other one. I'm still not sure how to say that word. Well, here we are. We found it. Quite quickly, too. Alright, so it wasn't a typo. There it is. Unctuous. Excessively ingratiating. Attempting to charm or convince somebody in an unpleasantly suave, smug, or smooth way. Oily, fatty, or greasy. Okay, this is more, I think, what's going on here. Resembling or containing oil, fat, or grease. 14th century, from medieval Latin unctuosus, from Latin unctus, anointing, from unguere, see unction. Unctuosity, unctuously, unctuousness. Just when I thought this Moby Dick won't have any more cool words, it goes and shows me it still has cool words. So there we go. And there is my alarm to end stream. Where is my mouse? There it is. There we go. Before I click weird things. 3 minutes left until another stream concludes. Yes. Not many people listen to Moby anymore, but I do. I'm a bit strange though. Yes, well, I skip a lot. I skip a lot, but it's mainly to keep interest. Not that I want to reduce the story. It's more to keep track of the actual story. And yeah, getting all these sideline things and philosophies really throws me off. Oh, you mean the other Moby? Yes, yes. I haven't heard his music in a long while. I'll admit to that. I haven't heard his music in a long, long while. There we go. But yeah, he's got some cool songs that I like. from way back when. I don't know how his music is today. Yeah, let's see. Who are we going to raid? You're right about that Steam controller Easter egg. I would like to hear that controller scream. Scream down. Yeah, I would also like to experience that in person, but I don't have that, and I don't think I'll ever be able to get it. But it's funny though. It's hilarious. I mean, you drop the controller and ah! Hey. Imagine if anything that you dropped had a Wilhelm scream every time it landed. You would eventually feel so bad about dropping things. Oh, you almost got it. Hopefully it won't disappear. Let's see if you can get it. Let's go. Let's go. People will start getting very paranoid. Yeah. Ah! No, jump. No, jump doesn't work. Oh no. Did I help you, Data? Oh no, it's gone. Ah! Oh well, it happened. There we go. Even that scream, if you had it on stuff and you drop it and it screamed like that, eventually you would not want to drop things because the thing screams at you. Imagine that, that would be funny. Alrighty, what do we feel like doing? Do we feel like going and checking out somebody racing, or are we going to see someone battle? So we've got two people in our sights. One of them is playing Marvel Rivals, and the other one is playing Forza Horizon 6. Copyright. So Data, since you are the active one here, what do you feel like checking out? Racing or fights? Marvel Rivals or Forza? Hydrate. Must. Alrighty. In that case, I will raid the guy that plays Marvel Rivals. And he will get a second shouty from us because he was in the chat earlier lurking away. Alrighty then. I still need to make my buttons. My shout out buttons. Oh well. Good idea. Cool. Alrighty. So, here is a shouty for Ramikai. Come on, I'm the presenter. Let's go. There we go. He is quite fun and fairly chill. And he's a cool cat. I enjoy hanging out in his dreams. There is the raid message. Give that a sneaky little copy. Yeah. So welcome, Jen, and thanks for being here. See you next time too, which will be tomorrow, because we shall be continuing the reading of that Moby, the whale, not the singer. The rest of the evening is blessed and awesome. Thank you, thank you. Same for you. May the Lord bless you. Bless all of you who joined me here today. Thank you all for being here and keeping me company. I appreciate it. You guys are awesome. And I hope you will have a fantastic rest of your day, evening, morning, afternoon, whichever time it may be. Maybe restful. And I'll see you guys again tomorrow for another reading of the Moby Dick. If you can find the A-Team, get them to do cool stuff with a pack of Orbit chewing gum sticks and a few rubber bands. Yeah. Indeeds, indeeds. If I ever did get a hold of them, I would definitely tell them to do that. But I think it sounds more something that MacGyver would do. But anyway, yeah, the A-Team were fun. Yeah, they definitely were. And I also did some MacGyvering of some of their things. But anyway, let us start the raid. There we go. A raid is started. Thank you all again, once again, for being here. Stay awesome, everybody. Take care of yourselves. God bless. Love you all. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.